Get out of my house. My sister-in-law slapped me then she learned it was my house. The first time my sister-in-law screamed, "Get out of my house." I honestly thought she was joking. Then her hand cracked across my face so hard my glasses hit the hardwood floor, and suddenly 30 silent faces froze in the middle of what had been advertised as a family celebration. Nobody rushed toward me. Nobody asked if I was okay. My older brother, Ethan, looked away as if watching his own wife humiliate his little sister was somehow easier than stopping her. The sting on my cheek wasn't nearly as painful as the expression in his eyes. It wasn't anger. It wasn't guilt. It was surrender. I bent down slowly to pick up my glasses while expensive leather shoes surrounded me like spectators at a boxing match. Someone whispered, "She finally pushed Olivia too far." Another voice answered, "She should have left weeks ago." Those words echoed through the enormous living room while crystal chandeliers reflected off polished marble floors that I knew better than anyone standing there. The irony almost made me laugh. Every inch of that house held memories nobody else could possibly understand. The staircase had been rebuilt after I fell from it at 11. The fireplace still had a tiny scratch from where my father accidentally dropped his military saber after returning from overseas. The oak beams overhead had been hand-selected by my grandfather. Yet somehow I had become the stranger. Olivia stepped closer, her designer heels clicking with confidence. "Did you hear me?" she snapped loudly enough for every guest to hear. "This family has tolerated you long enough. You're unemployed, you're always disappearing, and Ethan keeps paying your bills. Pack your junk and leave." A wave of uncomfortable silence swept through the room. Nobody knew that I wasn't unemployed. Nobody knew where I disappeared every few months. That misunderstanding had protected more people than they would ever realize. I looked at Ethan one last time, silently begging him to say something. Anything. Instead, he cleared his throat and muttered, Maybe it's best if everyone calms down." Olivia laughed. "No. Today ends this." She reached toward the overnight bag beside my chair and tossed it toward the front door like it was garbage. My heart didn't break because of the bag. It broke because inside it was the folded American flag from my father's military funeral, the one thing I never let out of my sight. I hurried toward it, but Olivia planted herself in front of me. "You're done pretending you belong here," she hissed. The room remained frozen. Every person watching believed they already knew the story. They believed I was the dependent younger sister clinging to a successful brother's generosity. They had absolutely no idea they were witnessing the biggest mistake Olivia would ever make. 3 years earlier, my life had looked nothing like the picture Olivia painted. I had been serving as a civilian financial investigator attached to a federal task force that quietly worked alongside military intelligence and white-collar crime units. Publicly, I was simply between jobs whenever I disappeared. Privately, I spent months helping uncover money laundering operations hidden behind luxury real estate companies, shell corporations, and fraudulent charities. The confidentiality agreements were brutal. I couldn't defend myself without risking investigations that stretched across multiple states. Even my own family believed I drifted from one temporary contract to another because I refused to explain the truth. My late father understood before he passed. He squeezed my hand in his hospital room and whispered, sometimes the strongest people are forced to look weak until the right day comes. I carried those words everywhere. After his death, our family changed almost overnight. Ethan had always been protective when we were children, but success transformed him into someone who measured people by appearances. His software company exploded, magazines called him a self-made entrepreneur, and then Olivia entered his life like a perfectly rehearsed performance. She was charming in public, generous when cameras were nearby, and impossibly controlling behind closed doors. Within months she convinced Ethan that every family decision should go through her first. My visits became shorter. Phone calls became awkward. Holidays became negotiations. Then, 6 months earlier, Ethan unexpectedly asked if I could stay in the guest suite while one of my assignments brought me back to town. Olivia smiled through clenched teeth and agreed. Every morning she found another reason to criticize me. I loaded the dishwasher incorrectly. I parked in the wrong place. I worked strange hours. I received mysterious phone calls. She even accused me of secretly borrowing money because I refused to discuss my finances. The truth was almost unbelievable. My investments, inherited business interests, and compensation from years of specialized work had quietly grown into a fortune that exceeded Ethan's entire company valuation. But wealth had never interested me. Privacy did. Long before my father died, he transferred ownership of the family estate into a protected trust with instructions that ownership remain confidential until certain legal conditions were satisfied. I became the trustee because I was the only one willing to honor his wishes without arguing. Even Ethan never asked to see the paperwork. He simply assumed Dad had left everything equally. Olivia assumed even less. She treated the estate as though marrying Ethan had automatically crowned her queen. What she didn't know was that every renovation she ordered, every room she redecorated, every extravagant party she hosted required authorization from documents she had never bothered reading. 2 weeks before tonight's disaster, I received a call from an attorney confirming that the trust's final confidentiality period had officially expired. He suggested it might finally be time to explain everything. I almost did. Then I looked at my family laughing around the dinner table and convinced myself another few weeks wouldn't matter. Standing there with my father's folded flag lying near the front entrance, I realized silence had become the most expensive mistake of my life. Olivia folded her arms triumphantly while guests slowly reached for their phones, pretending to check messages even though everyone was secretly watching. "You're embarrassing yourself," she announced. "This house belongs to my husband now, and frankly, you've overstayed your welcome." She emphasized every word as if delivering a courtroom verdict. I picked up the flag carefully, brushed invisible dust from its blue field, and held it against my chest. My hands weren't shaking from fear anymore. They were shaking because my father's final promise echoed inside my mind. Never reveal the truth in anger. Reveal it when it protects someone's dignity. Ethan finally stepped forward, rubbing the back of his neck. "Liv, maybe that's enough." She spun toward him instantly. "Enough?" "She's been freeloading for months." A murmur spread through the guests. One elderly neighbor quietly frowned. "I thought Olivia said Olivia inherited this place after the wedding." Another guest answered, "That's what everyone believed." Olivia heard them and smiled proudly, convinced their whispers supported her. Then the front door opened before anyone could say another word. 3 sharply dressed professionals entered carrying leather portfolios, followed by a gray-haired retired judge whom I recognized immediately from one of my father's oldest friendships. Behind them walked a uniformed county deputy serving as a neutral witness for legal documentation. The conversations died instantly. The judge looked around the silent room until his eyes found me standing beside the doorway with a red mark still visible across my cheek. His warm expression disappeared. "Miss Carter," he said carefully, "we came as soon as we received your attorney's message. We have the original trust documents, the recorded deed, and the court-certified transfer orders concerning this property." Every face turned toward me. Olivia laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake. This is my house." The judge slowly removed a thick folder, opened it with deliberate care, and looked directly at her before speaking the next sentence. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "that's exactly what we need to discuss." The silence that followed felt heavier than the walls themselves. No one moved. No one even seemed willing to breathe. Olivia's confident smile lingered for only a second before uncertainty crept across her face. She looked from the judge to Ethan, expecting someone to laugh, someone to announce that this was some ridiculous misunderstanding. Instead, Ethan stared at the thick stack of legal papers as though they had appeared out of nowhere. The retired judge calmly placed the folder on the dining table, smoothing the first page with practiced precision. "These are certified copies," he said. "The originals remain secured with the probate court and the family trust attorney." Olivia crossed her arms tighter. "I don't care what papers those are. My husband owns this house." The county deputy remained silent near the entrance, observing exactly as required. One of the attorneys adjusted his glasses and spoke evenly. "Actually, ownership has never been transferred to Mr. Ethan Carter." Several guests exchanged stunned glances. Someone quietly whispered, "What?" Another guest lowered her phone, suddenly realizing this wasn't ordinary family drama anymore. Ethan swallowed hard before finally finding his voice. "What are you talking about?" "Dad left everything equally." The attorney slowly shook his head. "That's what your father allowed everyone to believe until specific legal conditions were satisfied." Every eye landed on me. I hadn't spoken a single word. My cheek still burned where Olivia had struck me, but something inside me had changed. I wasn't standing there as the younger sister everyone pitted anymore. I was standing there as the only person in the room who already knew exactly what those documents contained. The judge looked at me with quiet respect before saying, "Miss Carter, would you like me to explain, or would you prefer to do it yourself?" I took a slow breath and answered softly, "Please, you explain." I wanted every word to come from someone no one could accuse of exaggerating. The judge nodded once. 23 years ago, your late father created the Carter Family Preservation Trust after returning from military service and expanding the family construction business. The trust contained strict instructions concerning this residence, surrounding land, and several commercial properties. Ethan frowned deeper with every sentence. After his diagnosis, your father amended the trust one final time. The attorney carefully slid another document across the table. Ethan immediately recognized his father's signature. His face drained of color. Olivia reached for the paper, but Ethan instinctively pulled it away before she could touch it. The judge continued. Your father believed wealth often destroyed families faster than poverty. He feared that if ownership became public immediately after his passing, outside influence would tear this family apart. Olivia interrupted sharply. This is ridiculous. Why wouldn't he tell us? The judge answered without emotion. Because he believed actions reveal character better than expectations. The room became even quieter. He appointed one trustee with complete authority over every decision involving the estate until the confidentiality period expired. During that period, the trustee was forbidden from publicly disclosing ownership except when legally necessary. Ethan slowly turned toward me, disbelief replacing every assumption he'd carried for years. Live. He whispered, almost unable to finish the sentence. You're saying. The attorney completed it for him. Your sister has been the sole trustee since your father's passing. A gasp rippled across the room. Olivia laughed again, but this time the sound was forced. Trustee? That doesn't make her owner. The attorney calmly removed another certified document. Ordinarily, no. But your father's final amendment included an additional provision. He paused long enough for everyone to lean closer. Upon expiration of the confidentiality period, provided the trustee fulfilled every fiduciary obligation, which Miss Carter has done flawlessly, the residence, surrounding acreage, and controlling ownership interests automatically vested solely in her name. Ethan stared at me like he had never seen me before. His lips moved, but no words came out. Olivia reached for his arm. Don't listen to this. There has to be another document. The attorney quietly replied, there is. He placed the final deed on the table. Across the top were the county seal, recording number, and my full legal name. The room erupted into stunned whispers. Olivia snatched the document before anyone could stop her. Her confidence vanished line by line as she read it. Her breathing became shallow. No, she whispered. No, this isn't possible. She frantically searched every page for a loophole, every signature for a mistake. There wasn't one. The judge folded his hands. Mrs. Carter, every renovation, every contractor approval, every insurance renewal, and every tax payment over the last several years was legally authorized by Miss Carter through the trust office. You simply never realized whose signature you were seeing. Olivia looked up so quickly the paper slipped from her hands. She approved everything? One attorney nodded. Including the new kitchen, the guest wing expansion, the landscaping, and the mortgage release that prevented foreclosure after your husband's business experienced temporary cash flow issues 18 months ago. Ethan's eyes shot toward me. You paid that? I finally met his gaze. Dad asked me to protect this family. I kept my promise. The words landed harder than any accusation could have. Ethan lowered his head, remembering every cold conversation, every unanswered defense, every moment he chose silence while Olivia humiliated me. Tears filled his eyes, but he couldn't bring himself to speak. Across the room, guests who had watched quietly only minutes earlier now looked at Olivia with expressions of disbelief instead of admiration. The power she had enjoyed all evening was disappearing in front of everyone. She took one slow step toward me, her voice trembling for the first time. Olivia, please. Ethan whispered, trying to stop whatever she was about to say. But before another word could leave her mouth, the lead attorney closed his portfolio and looked directly at me. "Miss Carter," he said respectfully, "there is one final matter your father instructed us to address tonight, and it concerns something Mrs. Carter has been doing behind your back for nearly 8 months." The entire room froze once again.